having the consistency of having a brand in front of people makes a huge difference on how they're going to decide to do business with you. In marketing, we talk about if we give somebody a tissue, is it called a tissue or is it called a Kleenex? Our family calls it Kleenex. Hey, it doesn't matter what brand it is, it's a Kleenex, right? So, what did Kleenex have to do to own that name? And then we flip it on our clients and say, what do we have to do to own the recognition that you need in your industry for the clients you want to serve? And that's what we're gonna focus on in the long term. And obviously, we have to make short adjustments along the way, right? You can't just take a ship and say, "Hey, we're going to America" without a compass. You need to be able to take that compass and make small corrections along the way before you get to your destination. And we do that with customer acquisition cost or CAC, and then lifetime value. We also call it LTV. Hey, welcome to the Valorous Marketing Conversation podcast. Today we're joined with Ryan and Mike, and I myself and Jeremy. I myself am Jeremy. And today we wanted to have a conversation around the longevity and the consistency that's needed in marketing to have it be something that is return on investment for businesses in the long run. I'm going to pop it off with a question, Ryan and Mike. How do we suggest to our clients that I'm going to rephrase this? I'm sorry. How does one balance the need for immediate results with long term goals of a marketing strategy? Once again, how do you balance the need for immediate results with the long term goals of a marketing strategy?
That's a great question. If you don't mind, I'll jump right in. I talk to people every day, and obviously, the question is, when can we expect results? What kind of results can we expect? It's all about time to turn. Unfortunately, from everybody I know and all the people we know in doing this every day, there's no magic button. There's no, we're going to start doing this tomorrow and the leads are going to come in the next day. If anybody does know that, please let us know. We'd love to start implementing that. But it's about those diligent efforts. It's about doing the things that are going to set you up for success in the future while getting you the short-term win. And those aren't going to be a flood of wins immediately, but we can see some of those in the short term while building for the long term. The key is not to sacrifice the long term for the short term. Yeah, it is a long-term play. Having that expectation going in that 3 months of doing this is going to yield you zero results.
Yep.
To have that expectation is great because chances are you're going to exceed it. But in the case where you don't, you're in a good place then, because that's what you expected. And over that time, you can definitely expect those results to start trickling in. It's not going to be a flood, like I said, immediately, but it will happen. So the key is to keep that in mind. Those short-term results, while they can be there, it's not going to be like turning on a faucet. We need to keep those long-term gains in mind.
Yeah. Mike, you have an opinion?
Yeah, I'll just bounce right off of Ryan and kind of use an analogy that our founder, Jonathan, uses a lot. And that is in today's digital world, most small businesses across the world have acknowledged they at least need a website. They at least need a website. What we're talking about is the longevity of a marketing strategy. What Jonathan says, I've heard him use this analogy before, is a website is like a beautiful, beautiful building. We can make the most beautiful website, extravagant, with trinkets all over, that's very user friendly. But if you build this hotel or building out in the middle of nowhere, no one's going to go to it. Marketing strategy is the highways, the roads that we can build people to get them to this beautiful building. And just like road work, just like building a beautiful building, it's not something you can, as Ryan said, flip a switch. Like it takes time for us to build those roads pointing people. But as soon as those roads are in place, they're not going anywhere. It's like the snowball effect. It starts off small and builds momentum going down. So as soon as we start building those roads pointing to people to that website, you start seeing more and more traffic, more and more conversions, and that momentum continues to build and build, and it's sustainable. It's not just gonna shut off the next day, it continues to go. So, it's the best way I could put it in an analogy that I stole from Jonathan.
No, that's great.
I was gonna ask you, Jeremy, I know we're not telling people what they wanna hear that, "Oh, you're not gonna be driving leads, you're not gonna get a bunch of phone calls tomorrow from the marketing you start today." But since you're the person that's doing this every day, implementing those strategies, what do you recommend? What is a good strategy for people to say, "All right, I what can I do to drive months in the or leads in the first 3 months, and then also set myself up for success in the"
And I'm going to answer that with the number one thing that I think all companies need to be paying attention to, and that's going to be what is your follow up in your funnel system to make sure any lead you get, whether it's today or whether it's 10 years from now, how are they being nurtured in the long term? Because I think that's where the balance will always be. When a lead comes in, no matter if it's off of an advertisement or if it's off of amazing organic SEO, how are you taking that lead and how are you running with it? Marketing is only one side of the coin, right? One side of the coin that gets you paid. The other side is going to be how do you treat your clients and how do you follow up with them? Um, Now, we can turn on the faucet. We can turn on the lead faucet, right? Through Google ads, through Facebook ads and stuff like that. What happens is we always get a complaint of these aren't really good leads, right? We don't know who's clicking on our ads. We're definitely not going to be, um, we're definitely not getting the quality of leads that we want. And my response is always going to be the same. Like the quality is in the quantity of leads. And you have to start building trust and authority and know in your company, no matter what you do. You can't just advertise, expect leads to come in. Yeah, you can close a few deals, but long term wise, you really need to have a nurture system that is top of the line, no matter what. That's my opinion.
I love it. I think that's something a lot of people forget about is that if I'm gonna start marketing, they're considering the new business, the new clients, the people that are gonna find them on Google or Google Ads or whatever. A lot of people happen to negate or completely forget about the fact that you have existing customers. You've worked with people in the past, you have names, you have emails. If you're embarking on marketing and trying to drive new business, the best way to do that is to leverage your past clients. I think that's a great point, and that's the way to get some of those quick wins. And use your marketing efforts to drive business from past clients and referrals and reviews, and then that will also help bring in those new pieces of business as well.
I love it. One more question here. Give me 1 second. Edit this out. Guys, what is the most important factor to consider when building a long term marketing strategy for a business? I'm gonna say it one more time. What is the most important factor to consider when building a long term marketing strategy for a business?
That's a good question, Jeremy. I think it's important to understand where you want to go as a business, first and foremost. If you want to be doubling the size of your business every year for the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to have a lot different strategy than someone who needs to a job a month or something like that. So I think that's really the place to understand is where are you trying to get to, because that's going to help us determine the path to get there. That's what I would say.
Along with that strategy, I would say is consistency of implementing that strategy. I would say consistency is key. And what I mean by that is you could create this beautiful strategy that works, but if you're not implementing it on a daily basis, it's never going to catch traction. It's never going to get in front of the people. So let's say you take the time to create that strategy of creating beautiful content, engaging content that people want to see. If you're not dripping that out on social media every single day, if you're not posting blog content, new pages out onto your website, if you're not creating a consistent drip emails going out to your clients, prospects, then that strategy really won't take effect. So it's that consistency on a daily basis, and I know that can be hard, trying to remain consistent, but consistency is key when it comes to marketing and trying to continue to nurture those leads. Because what do they say? It's like, you need to get in front of someone like 7 times before they actually start to consider making a sale with you. So you're not those 1, 2, not even 3, the first 3 touch points aren't gonna be enough. It's really that consistency of implementing that strategy.
Yep. And I think you guys are both right. I would always suggest to a business that they measure 2 things, and those are things that are measurable. That's gonna be customer acquisition costs and then the lifetime value of that client. How much money or how much time and effort does it cost a company to get a new client? And then how long can we keep them as a client? Is it only a one and done? Is it literally their lifetime? Having the consistency of having a brand in front of people makes a huge difference on how they're going to decide to do business with you. In marketing, we talk about if we give somebody a tissue, is it called a tissue or is it called a Kleenex? Our family calls it Kleenex. Hey, it doesn't matter what brand it is, it's a Kleenex, right? So, what did Kleenex have to do to own that name? And then we flip it on our clients and say, what do we have to do to own the recognition that you need in your industry for the clients you want to serve? And that's what we're gonna focus on in the long term. And obviously, we have to make short adjustments along the way, right? You can't just take a ship and say, "Hey, we're going to America" without a compass. You need to be able to take that compass and make small corrections along the way before you get to your destination. And we do that with customer acquisition cost or CAC, and then lifetime value. We also call it LTV. So,
Absolutely. I think that's a good point too. That's especially important for those companies that are working in with a tighter margin, working in, for example, not a lot of companies have the budget to go spend $20,000 on ads and a bunch of money on SEO and their website every month. Where a lot of home service companies and restoration companies are looking to do as much as they can with, candidly, a fairly limited marketing budget. So when that's the case, it's that much more important to understand how much is each customer worth? How much am I spending to get those customers? Because those are that's what's going to determine the success of your marketing strategy.
Mhm. I agree.
That's a great point, Jeremy. I actually have one for you. Keeping on that same note, when people are putting together these marketing strategies, especially as a home service business nowadays in this ever-changing digital market, doesn't seem to work as well for these types of businesses as it does if you're selling stuff or you're a retail company or something like that. So how can these home services businesses adapt their marketing strategies to keep up with these changing trends and consumer behavior and the way people are finding it now?
Yeah. We have to break through the noise no matter what, right? So if you're a damage restoration company, for instance, obviously we build a website that converts. We've already talked about that a little bit. There's a lot of noise out there. And a lot of times, if you're, for example, a damage restoration company, there's a lot of noise all at one time. Flood restoration happens after a big storm, right? And so you have to realize that your cost to grab somebody's attention is going to go up because everybody's demanding that search term on Google or maybe they're on Facebook. So there's going to be a spike on ad spend for a short time. Are you okay putting your ad spend up there? If it's organic SEO, are you answering the right questions that your clients are actually asking? Do you show up in the snippets? Do you show up on the front page? Do you show up in the map pack? All those are going to be combined. And that's really why you hire a marketing company, because we have to keep our eye on that at all time. if you're a damage restoration company, I don't know how you could expect to do both, to be honest with you. There's just a lot to take care of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think to that point as well, the one thing I've looked at for some of these local service-based businesses can help set them apart from these bigger brands, especially if you're operating in maybe one or two cities or a region, is making content that is very localized, very specific, talking about buildings or events that happen within your community. Those are the things that are going to build credibility in you, make people look at you as their neighbor, the person. I want to work with my neighbor. That's somebody who's trustworthy. That's somebody who is part of my community and ideally has my community's best interest in mind. So I think that is another point that is overlooked by a lot of home service businesses that are creating content. They're creating things that are very general, but speak to the people that are right down the road. Speak to the people because those are the ones you know best. Those are the people you're going to relate to the most. That's how you're going to be really.
I love it. Mike, you have anything?
Not necessarily at this point, no.
I'm going to talk about how we just posted for a client of ours about a local fire that was happening and how we're trying to be very intentional about getting information out there that people are going to say, hey, that's in my neighborhood.
Yeah, I can talk about that. A really good example is we had a client call us. He said, "Hey, we have a emergency fire here. It's taking out multiple buildings, and we want to make sure that people know that we care, number one. And number two, we want to make sure that we show up as somebody who's searching for fire damage restoration." We had to pivot quickly, right? We had to find photos of the fire that he actually sent us, which was awesome. We made sure that we posted on social media. Our hearts are with people in Richmond right now. Sorry, I'm gonna cut that. Our hearts are with the victims right now. And then, like, we also boosted their Google ad presence for a week because we know that it's gonna be a couple days before people are actually gonna be searching for fire damage restoration. The people have to go in, they have to do an investigation, they have to figure out what's going on before they even consider putting insurance companies in touch with people. But yeah, we have to boost their ad for a limited time, ad spend for a limited time to make sure that they do show up when needed. And also, what can we do on their site to make sure that they're boosted in that area for fire damage restoration? So we have to do some on-page or on-site adjustments as needed, make sure that they show up for what people are searching. What are some, or okay, guys, let's talk about like organic SEO. Number one, what is it? And number two, why is it a long game? And is it worth it in the end?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a question I feel we get a lot because kind of what Ryan was talking about, people when we're talking about SEO, they expect it to be something that it just starts right off the bat. Once someone signs on with us, they're expecting to see results right off the bat. And unfortunately, it's not. And when it comes to digital marketing, we like to think of it as two arms that work together as part of the body. And one of them is Google Ads, which Jeremy talked about earlier a little bit. That is something that you pay money towards and you can't. That's a flip of the switch. That's active. But the question is talking about SEO, which is the long game, and why it's so important to not only get the instant results through ads, but get longevity results through SEO is because you're not eventually you want to build that momentum through SEO that you don't have to drop the ad spend because ads, depending on what your industry is, like I'll use HVAC for example. It's a highly competitive industry. And so when you're in a highly competitive industry, those pay per click, those terms that you want to appear for can add up really quickly. So it's important to, as we said, pay for those depending on what you can afford, but also put some efforts into the long game in SEO. Build that organic trend so you start ranking better in Google organically without having to pay extra for it so that your ad spend can come down later and you can build this juggernaut of an SEO system, and then you'll start saving money as you're getting more leads coming in through organic. So that's the long game. And it's all about why it takes so long is because you're telling Google, you're putting content onto Google for it to crawl and build momentum. I used this analogy earlier, but it's like a snowball. Like it builds momentum as Google sees more and more content that you're putting out there, more and more links that you're connecting with other websites, other authority. You're creating that authority. And I'll spin that off to one of you guys. With that momentum, we're talking about momentum. How important is it to get that authority on Google so that you're beating out some of your competitors?
It's vital. Google has introduced new algorithms where they're saying the person who writes the article or the blog for search engine optimization, they have to have what they call authority. You can't start a website day one, expect to rank for a keyword because you have zero authority in the eyes of Google. Now, if you take the thought process of SEO as answering questions and every day, 365 days a year, you're answering questions in the form of a blog on your website, you're going to be building up so much authority that within a couple of years, Google will outrank you above everybody else because you've shown that you know the answer to all the questions people are asking. One, you're the professional in the area. Two, and then you've taken to answer those questions on your website. So if there's a 365-day challenge I could challenge you on right now, it's get on your website and just answer a question. Literally, the blog title is the question, and then post a question or post the answer underneath that in 300 words or more. You're going to build a lot of authority over time, and then eventually nobody will be able to touch you in your industry because you've answered everything, and Google knows that you're trustworthy, and that's how they start ranking in SEO. But it's a long game. It's not something I could do day one, post 365 blogs on one day and expect a result because Google knows that their algorithms are going to show that this is a one-day thing. Over time, it's like fine wine. Every day it gets better, every day it gets better, and every day it gets better. So just don't stop.
Yeah. That's half the battle, right? Because we do this every day, we understand the rules that Google wants us to play by. And because of that, and because we're doing it every day, we hear about those updates. And when Google changes things a little bit, we're on top of those. That's half the battle, is understanding the rules you need to play by in the game you play to show up. The one thing I wanted to add to that, though, is I think where a lot of people make a mistake is they don't understand SEO as an investment. It is an investment in your company, like a piece of machinery, like a building, like an employee, like anything that you are investing in your company. You don't ever expect to get a return on that in the first month, in the first year. If you buy a piece of machinery, if you're a restoration company, you're buying new fans and dehumidifiers and things, you're not expecting to turn a profit on those for several years usually. You think about marketing, think about your SEO that way. Advertising is different. Advertising, you need a direct, an immediate return because your ad is gone. You're not showing up. SEO is different. You will show up. It is sticky. It is an asset. So investing $1,000 or $2,000 a month in your SEO is not going to turn into $2,000 or $10,000 a month next month or in 6 months. But in a year, in 2 years, you will rank for so many keywords and be driving so much traffic for the things you do because you've been building this, that you will be essentially paying for all of your years of investing in that potentially every month because of that authority and that.
Yeah. I know. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's a connection between something that you just said, Ryan, about it being an investment and something that Jeremy said earlier about hiring a marketing agency. And that is an investment. Like you're not going to be flipping a switch, but you're hiring a team, a marketing agency to come in and build that momentum for you. And what that ultimately is doing, just like everything else, like Ryan said, when you're buying machines, you're buying equipment, it's helping you save time. It's helping you do the job better and more efficiently, which saves you time to put in other efforts to advance the business. That's exactly the investment marketing is. you're putting more effort or you're putting more time, paying more money into marketing efforts so you as business owners can take more time to advance your business in other avenues and see more result coming in. I think there's a beauty. It's just like everything. I just saw the connection there of putting an investment, even though it costs money up front, will save you more time down the road to spend advancing your business.
Yep. 100%.
I think marketing is the best investment you can make for your business. If you're relating it to return, if you're investing, if you're buying a piece of machinery, the return you're going to get on that is so low. But we've all talked to plenty of businesses who are more than happy to invest tens of thousands of dollars in one fell swoop to buy this new piece of machinery that's going to make it easier for them to do their job. There are benefits. Essentially making them money, it's not going to make them that much money over the lifetime of the machine or the company. Whereas with marketing, you can invest money over the course of a year that will end up paying for itself every month and generating you return on investment every month over time. So there's not a lot of things in your business that are going to do that, especially at the kind of rate that marketing can. You look at the kinds of return that people expect 2 times, 3 times return on investment for advertising or their marketing budget. What other things in business give you those kinds of returns?
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the pros. We've talked a lot about like things that marketing can help with. What are some of the what would you guys say are some of the consequences for businesses that don't put like efforts into marketing, that don't put efforts into SEO? Specifically, since we're talking about SEO here, what are the consequences that some business and business owners might come across when they don't put any efforts into organic results?
Great question. You don't hear about them. Yeah. If you're not doing both, right? The moment I stop spending money for advertisement is the moment the leads stop. Unless I have a really good contact base, but for new leads coming in, unless they're not referrals, how are you going to gain business? That's my question.
Mhm.
I
It's
got a
going to
store. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say I think it's probably going in your story potentially, but you're going to have to work really hard. You have to do a lot of calling or knocking on doors. You have to be getting those new leads some other way, right? You got to go talk to people if you're bringing them.
Yep. One of the So my background, obviously, I worked with a lot of real estate agents, helping them grow their brand and their marketing. And one of the first ones I worked with, our number one goal was to own the web space for condominiums in West Michigan. So no matter what we did, our number one goal that year for 1 year was to write about condos, their amenities, and then uh, be the resource for those condos. In January, we brought in 0 leads. By the time that year was done, we were pulling 16, 17 leads a day. After I left, I know he was still pulling in to double digits a day for years off those pages that we created because those search terms were always there and the content was really good and they show up for leads. And that just shows the consistency of pay that for a year and then you can live off that for a long time before Google starts changing algorithms. But even then, all you have to do is go through, update the post, and he'd show up again because he's already built that authority. So I just want to tell that little story is make it a challenge for your business. That's what I would do is I would say, what can we blog about for a year? What questions can we answer? And just run with it. So,
Absolutely.
what are some common mistakes that businesses make when they start working their SEO incorrectly?
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up because this ties into everything we've been talking about. People are looking for those quick wins. So they want to show up on Google. So what can I do to show up on Google? Guess what? There are some things that you can do that will game the system, if you will. And they might be beneficial for a couple days or a week, but at any moment all those efforts will be for naught. And not only that, you won't even be able to start making those efforts again because Google will essentially blacklist you, or people, if you are familiar with it, have heard black hat techniques. It's those things that Google frowns upon. And if you go outside of their rules, they'll just cut you off completely. And as a small business nowadays, that's essentially a death sentence to not be able to utilize Google Business, advertising, rank your website. Those are essential now to growing your business. So if you can't do that, you're going to be in a really bad spot. And I would say the thing to look out for, the biggest mistake to make, is to do those quick tricks that will potentially get your website ranking, but are outside of what Google recommends and wants you to do, and it'll cost you a lot. That's the biggest mistake people make when they're in SEO.
Exactly what you're saying, Ryan. Google's the monster in the room right now. They're the dominant force when it comes to digital marketing. And so they're the ones that set the rules. They're the ones that set the rules. So that's why it's important. Touching back on what Jeremy said, it's important to stay up to date with what Google's doing with their updates, what they deem is important in SEO, so that we as marketing or people in doing marketing can follow those rules to gain Google's favor. And when you break those rules, when you try to jump hoops and try to cut the lines, you're breaking Google's rules. And newsflash, Google's not dumb. Like, they will catch those things. We're growing in a digital era that we're seeing more and more power in the digital world. We're seeing AI pretty close to firsthand now. And so Google will be able to catch those things. And if they slap you on the wrist, unfortunately, it's not just a slap on the wrist. Like, you're getting a leg and an arm cut off, and you're trying to run a marathon with only one leg. So it is very important to stay up to date with what Google is deeming as important, in following those rules and doing them as Google deems necessary. And that's how you're going to see the best results, not by doing these black hat techniques, not doing just cheating, but trying to find these interesting. So that's why it's also important to be a critical thinker, because there are people out there, influencers. We live in an influencer world that are encouraging people to try different, hack the system, hack this, try that. Be a critical thinker and make sure before you check a technique, that is something that Google will play well with their system.
I agree. Anybody want to wrap it up? I think we've answered everything. I think we have some good stuff here.
Yeah. I was wondering if the only other thing for kind of mistake that people make that I can think of as well when they're going into SEO and marketing is just not having a realistic expectation or the commit to actually follow through and be dedicated to doing. Candidly, if you're going to go in and say, I want to do SEO, and you're going to create a blog for the next 3 months, and you're never going to do it again, probably don't waste your time.
Mhm.
You could probably spend that time more valuably in doing other things. But if you're going to commit to it, to being diligent, to doing what needs to be done, then it can be extremely effective in having those realistic expectations, because a common phrase we use is 3 months in, you're going to think you're wasting your time. You think you're wasting your money, but it's building, it's growing. So if you're doing SEO on your own, say you don't hire an agency, say you want to do that on your own, and you've been doing it for 3 or 6 months and you didn't go in with the right expectations, you're going to get discouraged. You're going to stop, and it's all going to be for naught anyway. You need to have the right expectations so you continue to do it, so you can reap the benefits of all that time.
It's time on task over time. Time on task over time. And if you are not prepared to take that on, that's why you hire a company like us, so we can take it on for you.
Absolutely.
Sweet. I want to thank you guys for your time today. Mike, can you want to change it so we can see all three of us real quick? I wanted to take some time. I wanted to thank you guys for being here today, answering some great questions. If you need us, just visit us at valorousscircle.com. You'll find a lot of information there. You'll find that our blog is chock full of really good marketing tips, and reach out, start a conversation, and we'd love to be able to help you with your marketing needs moving forward.